and welcome to my video for day number 14 of Inktober. If you're subscribed to my channel, I hope you enjoyed the mixed media time-lapse I uploaded yesterday. Because of a few things I'm going to be talking about in today's video, I knew that I wasn't going to get an Inktober one uploaded, but I had that particular video on the back burner for a while now, and I just had to finish up a few little bits and pieces. So I decided that I would upload that instead. So moving on to today's video and kind of explaining why one didn't get finished yesterday. The prompt I was using for this particular piece was the phrase deep sea. And I did make a piece on the 14th. So as far as I'm concerned, I did finish Inktober on that day. I did draw with ink on that day. But the problem was that I really did not like it. And it wasn't just I disliked it a little bit. This happened on day 3 of Inktober specifically. I created a piece that I really didn't like for a couple of different reasons. But I still uploaded it and I still wanted to share it. But this was definitely my least favorite piece by far. And to me, the main problem, the main reason I didn't upload it, is because it didn't even feel like a drawing to me. I believe I actually recorded the audio for day 13 of Inktober on the day that I created this piece. I hadn't done it yet, but I mentioned in that video that I was completely exhausted and I had to push all of my work later in the evening. So I didn't really have a lot of time to create something. And what I did was essentially just layered ink. It wasn't really an illustration of anything. It was supposedly some sea plants, but it felt very much like a cop-out to me. And I didn't really want for that to be part of my collection. And so, for my 14th illustration, I decided to do an entirely new drawing. If my voice sounds a little bit scratchy and rough right now, that's because it is later in the day when I'm recording this audio. Because today, I have kind of been playing catch-up. I do believe that the previous piece was a good learning experience. As I mentioned, it was basically just layered ink, but it was a good way of experimenting and seeing how the ink responded. However, it very much felt like something that was supposed to be just for me and wasn't supposed to be a Inktober illustration, because to me, it didn't even feel like an illustration. And that leads us to the time-lapse that you are currently watching. And I am much happier with this piece than I was with that one. I also applied a few of the things from the original piece to this one. It was kind of subconscious, but it was kind of my way of projecting the things that I liked about the original into something that was more of an illustration. What I did with the plants on this piece is very similar, as is the splattering of a darker ink to create texture that could be considered water. Now, as I mentioned when I picked this prompt, the deep sea is actually very horrifying to me. I think that was a big part of my initial problem when I was creating the first piece. I wanted to take it in a direction that was a little more relaxed because I didn't want to completely terrify myself like I had when I drew that creepy doll, but next level because I'm actually scared of the sea. And so I did eventually go with a mermaid design that I ended up sketching out after my initial failed attempt. Originally, I thought about doing a more creepy looking mermaid, but the composition for this piece in particular felt a lot more elegant, and altogether I just felt like I wanted to go with that kind of mood, and I can always draw a creepier mermaid at a later date. Maybe not even in Inktober, maybe when I actually can use color. Now, speaking of the composition of this piece, I really like how flowy and pretty this feels. When I was doing the thumbnail sketches, I purposefully created the composition using a lot of curved, flowing lines. And you can see this kind of repeat itself in the hair and the plants and the tail. And my reason for doing this was because I knew that those types of curved lines would help me achieve the mood that I was looking for. Now, in contrast to this, I did use a few harder lines. I've always liked the use of triangles to represent scales in these types of drawings. I'm not sure why that is. It just is something that I enjoy the look of, and so I decided to go with that. And there are also a few sharper edges in the tail and what could be considered her ears. In the end, even though this might be one of my simpler pieces, especially in terms of the actual pose of the figure, I think it also might be one of my favorites. There's something about the way that it makes me feel. I think I just really managed to capture the emotion and the mood that I was aiming for, and so it makes me like the piece more. And overall, I am very glad that I decided to redraw this prompt, that I decided to take it a new direction. If I had just stuck with the original drawing, if it could even be called that, I would have just been unhappy and I wouldn't have come out of it with this piece. As I get further into the month, with this piece marking day 14 or the end of week 2, I do think that I'm starting to become generally happier with my pieces overall. Obviously, I have the off days, like the original piece, but that was mostly because I was tired. And I think that this partially comes about due to a conscious effort to improve. If you look at my drawing for day 12, I believe, the illustration where I did the creepy doll in front of the Victorian style house, I talk about specifically pulling elements from day 5 that I disliked when I drew a Victorian house in order to improve in this illustration, or the one I was just talking about. However, I also think that some of this improvement or this comfort level has to do with the fact that we're not allowing ourselves to get out of practice. If you think of other skills that aren't art, if you don't do them for an extended period of time, it can be harder to get back into them after the fact. You just forget how you used to do something, and so when it comes time to try again, it's almost like you're starting over. And for me, I very much think that this also applies to my art in some cases. So a challenge like Inktober is very interesting because it forces you to constantly be creating, to constantly be producing new art. And because of that, our drawing skills are not given the chance to kind of leave us, so to speak. It is something that is very interesting to think about. And of course, the idea of Inktober is that it creates a habit. So pushing out of Inktober and just creating your life around what you've learned within that challenge. So I do think that creating every day has given me this kind of desire to create more consistently, to create finished illustrations more specifically. Maybe not every day. I think trying to create full illustrations every day is not necessarily viable in the long term for most people, myself included. However, more often than I was before Inktober started would be nice. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's time lapse. I am very happy with this finished piece, and I'm glad that this is the one I'm presenting to you instead of the other one. And without further ado, I'm going to transition us into the last part of the video where I'm picking the prompt for the next one. So I'm just going to jump right into picking the prompt for the next video. primarily because as of this point, I'm not exactly sure what was contained in the video up until this point. So we're just gonna go with this. And yeah. Let's do this one. And the prompt is dagger. Now, I really like this prompt. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I do like it. I think that there's a lot of interesting potential in it, and that the themes could very easily be tied to other pieces I've done thus far this month. So yeah. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the process and my thoughts on this particular day of Inktober. You can subscribe to see what I continue to do throughout my Inktober journey, including what I do with this prompt, and I will see you guys next time.